The day before the apocalypse broke out, I sealed the gate of the community, despite the property owners in the community swearing downstairs. Which son of a bitch welded the gate of the community shut? I stood at the windowsill and looked towards the entrance of the community. There was a dense crowd, and every one of them seemed like my grandson. Under the scorching sun, I ran forward desperately. Breathing became more and more difficult, and my throat was so dry that it seemed to be on fire. My legs felt as if they were tied with 1,000 weight. A small stone tripped me, and I fell to the ground. I used all my strength, but still couldn't stand up. I hadn't eaten anything for 3 days. The last sip of water I had was when I lay by the small river and drank it last night. If I had known, I definitely wouldn't have given the last bread to someone else. Behind me, 2 zombies were walking towards me, waving their tattered arms. Their severely decayed faces were covered with thick mucus. A small piece of meat was still hanging from the mouth of one of the zombies. These days, even zombies had meat to eat, while I couldn't even get a blade of grass. I suddenly came to my senses and decided to slack off. If I was glad that I woke up early, otherwise, when the world was full of zombies, I wouldn't even be able to eat a person. I calmly closed my eyes and let the 2 zombies bite my body. The heart-rending pain instantly invaded my brain. Meow, meow. I was in so much pain that I lost my senses. I vaguely heard someone calling my name. Barely opening my eyes, a tall piece of food was running towards me. I slightly curved the corners of my mouth, only to see that person waving the baton in his hand and knocking off the head that was biting my shoulder. Then it was the head that was gnawing on my arm. And then it was me. My food attacked me. Scumbag. If you can't have it, you destroy it. When I woke up again, I found myself in my own room. The bright sunlight shone in through the window. There was a hint of sweetness in the air, without that disgusting smell of decay at all. Looking at the passers, by walking normally in the community, I was overjoyed and slapped myself hard. Woo! It really fucking hurt. I quickly ran to the bedside and rummaged through the phone under the pillow. It was July. I was reborn. A week before the apocalypse broke out, I was reborn. I rushed to the kitchen and cooked a big meal for myself. While eating, I calculated the things to do next. My name is Meow. I have no father or mother, and was brought up by my grandmother. 5 years ago, when I was a sophomore in college, my grandmother suffered from a serious illness and left me, leaving behind an old house. Soon after my grandmother passed away, the old house was due for demolition, so I inherited a demolition resettlement house and yuan in cash. I swallowed the last bite of food and bit my chopsticks, thinking, yuan didn't seem to be enough to stockpile supplies. Putting down the bowl, I opened the software store and downloaded all the loan-enabling apps. JD Finance, Yuan XX Loan, Yuan XX Hua, Yuan. In one morning, I got a total of yuan for free plus the yuan I had before. It was yuan in total. Looking at my house, although square meters was not small, it was still far from enough to stockpile supplies. Having a self-sufficient piece of land was necessary to survive for a longer time. I remember that in my previous life, it was 9 months after the apocalypse broke out that the rescue troops arrived in Subei City. I should have been able to hold out until the troops came to rescue me. But that day, I was hiding in the small supermarket where I had been hiding for a long time. Through the glass, I saw a man staggering towards me. I hid the last bread in the small supermarket in my clothes and tightly grasped the chain for locking the door. As a result, the man didn't break in as I had expected and snatch my only remaining food. Instead, he fell to the ground with a thud. After all, I had lived in this apocalypse for 9 months. I considered myself not a saint at this time. A drone with a big loudspeaker tied to it flew over the man's head. Today is March. The rescue troops have arrived in Subei City and are clearing the roads. Please, surviving citizens, protect yourselves and wait for rescue. It is expected to complete all rescue work in the city within 3 days. I was overjoyed. Finally, the rescue troops had arrived. I was saved. I looked at the man on the ground. A smile also appeared on his filthy face. It was this smile that made me feel compassion. I opened the door of the supermarket and walked towards the man. He looked at me defensively. I took out the bread with body temperature from my clothes and placed it in front of him. Did you hear that? The rescue troops are coming. This is my last bread. I hope you can hold on and wait for rescue. He opened his mouth weakly, but didn't make a sound. I changed my clothes and went out to find the real estate agency at the entrance of the community. I want to rent a villa in Happy Homeland. It's better to have yards in the front and back. The bigger, the better. Coincidentally, the landlord of Villa No went to another city last month and entrusted me to rent out his house sites. Yuan a month. The price is not expensive. As the agent spoke, he had already opened the photo album on his phone and showed me the pictures of the villa. Looking at the nearly square meter yard, I was tempted. Please take me to have a look. The agent took a bunch of keys and entered the community with Meth Villa, had a total of 4 floors, 1 basement floor and 3 above ground floors. And there was also a square meter yard. The basement floor could be used as a warehouse, and vegetables could be planted in the yard. This was simply a dream villa. Looking at the 1-meter high courtyard wall, I calculated in my mind that it must be raised to 3 meters in the apocalypse. We not only had to guard against zombies, but also against people who were more terrifying than zombies. There would definitely be many people coveting my comfortable life. I paid yuan to the real estate agency and bought this several million yuan villa. I silently apologized to the landlord. In my heart, I'm not a savior. I can't save the world. I can only take care of myself. 6 days before the apocalypse broke out, I purchased refrigerators, freezers, and generators online on JD. I also bought sets of summer pajamas, sets of autumn pajamas, sets of winter pajamas, and pairs of slippers on Pinduoduo. Then I made a list with that thick stack of paper. I went to the nearby RT Mart. Entering the supermarket, I went directly to the service desk and found the manager of RT Mart. When the manager heard that I was here to purchase goods in bulk, he looked at me like I was a fool. I took out that stack of paper from my bag, took a look, pulled out the 2 sheets with snacks written on them, and handed the rest to the manager. Bags of rice, bags of flour, barrels of blended oil, gene of red beans, gene of mung beans, gene of soybeans, gene of black beans, gene of glutinous rice, gene of sticky rice, gene of millet, gene of black rice, gene of purple rice. The manager finished reading and looked at me in a daze. I motioned for him to continue. He put the read paper at the back and continued to look at the second page. Bags of salt, bags of monosodium glutamate, bags of starch, bags of white sugar, bottles of pepper powder, bottles of chili powder, bottles of cumin powder, bottles of soy sauce, bottles of vinegar, bottles of oyster sauce, bottles of dark soy sauce, bottles of cooking wine, bottles of Gamma. The manager turned another page and reluctantly read: boxes of braised beef noodles, boxes of spicy beef noodles, boxes of hot and sour noodles, boxes of fire chicken noodles, boxes of river snail rice noodles, boxes of self-heating hot pot, barrels of laundry detergent, toothbrushes, toothpastes, facial cleansers, bottles of dishwashing liquid, bottles of hand sanitizer, packs of toilet paper, packs of tissue paper, sanitary napkins. The manager was probably tired of reading and returned the paper to me. Are you here to purchase goods for a supermarket? I awkwardly pulled the corners of my mouth and returned a sincere look. I'm really buying. Have you brought the money? Then I showed him the WeChat balance on my phone. After counting, the manager took the paper back. I'll go and prepare the goods. That's more like it. I took the remaining 2 sheets of paper and also entered the supermarket to prepare the goods. This paper was full of snacks that I had been longing for. 2 hours later, I pushed a row of shopping carts to the checkout counter with the supermarket guide, including the goods prepared by the manager. I paid more than yuan in total at this time. The balance was yuan. In the evening, the supermarket delivery truck arrived. I paid an extra yuan and asked the delivery man to help move all the things to the basement. After the delivery man moved all the things and was about to leave, a small bread fell out of the cargo compartment. As soon as the car started, I walked over and picked it up. This was the bread I had bought in the supermarket before in my previous life. This was the last food I had because I heard the rescue broadcast. I kindly gave this food to a strange man, but 3 days later, the rescue troops did not rescue me as scheduled. I had to come out of the supermarket and look for food everywhere. Can you give me the bread in your hand? A cold voice came. Interrupting my memories, I realized that my previous stockpiling actions might have been seen by someone. I turned around and looked at the man behind me. This time, he was wearing a dark blue security uniform and standing behind me with a baton in his hand. His deep eyes were obscure. I'm hungry, he said. He looked at the bread in my hand and smiled, then handed it to him. This was not the same situation as before. I had bought a full boxes of this kind of bread, not for anything else. Just because of the loss in the past, he stared at the bread for a long time, as if looking at some rare treasure. It took him a long time to tear open the package and take a small bite. Then he said to me vaguely, "Thank you." I had seen him before the apocalypse broke out. His name is Lu Yuan. He is tall and slender, with fair skin, bright eyes, and a handsome face. He is the new tenant who moved to the floor above my house, probably because I'm a face control. I like him very much, but I only dare to hide it in my heart occasionally. When we meet on the stairs, we will nod and smile. That's all from the first day I saw him. I thought he was a person with great wisdom. Even the security guard praised him. This young man has a bright future. He became a security guard at a young age and saved more than years of detours. Later I heard that he was assigned here by the school for an internship. It was mandatory. If he didn't do the internship, he wouldn't get his graduation certificate. 5 days before the apocalypse broke out, the home delivery service on JD was really fast. The courier came to deliver the goods early in the morning. The refrigerators and freezers were all placed on the first floor. 1 generator was left in the yard, and the rest were all put in the basement for backup. I took a taxi and went out to buy pigs. Dead pigs. I don't like the taste of beef and mutton, nor the texture of chicken and duck meat, so I went straight to the nearby slaughterhouse and bought pigs. The boss kindly helped me separate and pack the pork, ribs, internal organs, and pig's trotters, and then sent me and the pigs back with a truck. The 10 freezers were stuffed to the brim. After lunch, I called the water delivery company. "Master, please deliver large barreled bottled waters to Villa No and Happy Garden." "My goodness, barrels? Should I dig a well for you at your house?" The master's words hit the nail on the head. Barrels of water might not be enough to drink. Food can be grown, and vegetables can be grown, but water cannot be grown only by digging a well. Can we solve the problem once and for all, master? Are you really willing to help me dig a well? Beep beep beep. The sound of the phone being hung UPI might have been regarded as a lunatic. I opened my phone and found a professional well Digging company on Baidu. Half an hour later, the workers came with their equipment. I quietly closed the gate and found a hidden corner in the backyard. I was afraid that the property management would call the police and say that I was damaging the landlord's private property. This was also the reason why I planned to add a fence and seal the community at the Indies. That's right, I'm going to seal the community. I hope my neighbors can communicate with me in human language, even if they put a knife to my neck and say, "Hand over your river snail rice noodles." I don't want to hear that ho sound that seems to be squeezed out of the throat and is like having a mouthful of 10,000-year-old phlegm anymore. The well was dug for an afternoon and finally completed before dark. I paid the workers yuan at this time. The balance was yuan. I also placed an order for kettles on Jitty. There was no way. I have a weak stomach and can't drink well water. I'm afraid that I'll die of diarrhea in the toilet before being eaten by zombies. Thinking of this, I suddenly realized that I needed a lot of medical supplies. 4 days before the apocalypse broke out, there was a large pharmacy near my house. I handed the written list to the salesperson. The salesperson took the paper with a confused look. Boxes of cefixime, boxes of amoxicillin, boxes of ibuprofen suspension, boxes of cold granules, boxes of Lianhua Qingwen, boxes of cough granules, boxes of montmorillonite powder, boxes of levofloxacin, bottles of iodine tincture, bottles of degree medical alcohol, boxes of band-aids, boxes of condoms. Buffed. The salesperson stopped when she heard the sound and looked at me resentfully. Her eyes seemed to be accusing me of mocking her. It really wasn't me laughing at her. I turned around and saw those beautiful peach blossom eyes squinted into a curved arc. Cough, cough, cough. Sorry, I choked. Lu Yuan smiled sheepishly. What a coincidence, Yuri also here to buy medicine. I greeted him awkwardly. This was definitely the ultimate social death. He must have heard that I wanted to buy boxes of condoms and couldn't help laughing. Our community had just been handed over not long ago, and the number of residents was not large. Those who moved in first were newly married couples in a hurry to get married. I was just worried about the population problem. Are you planning to open a pharmacy? Lu Yuan teased. When he saw me blushing, I bit my lip and didn't speak. I'm not good at lying. He restrained his smile and gave me a meaningful look. Better buy less. Then he took 2 bottles of vitamin C and checked out and left. You. Looking at his back, I had a brain fart and asked, "Do you have any illness?" Actually, my original intention was to ask if he had any chronic diseases and needed to stockpile some medicine. Lu Yuan was slightly stunned, then looked at the vitamin C in his hand and shook his head with a smile. "No illness, I just like to eat this." I heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, he didn't ask me if I was sick. Otherwise, I would definitely answer truthfully that I have a weak stomach. When the salesperson confirmed the order with me, I added bottles of vitamin cat this time. The balance was yuan. In the evening, the employees of the pharmacy delivered the medicine to the villa in a small truck. 3 days before the apocalypse broke out last night, I had a dream. In the dream, that tall man was shouting my name desperately. "Mingyao, you can't die. I'm sorry I'm late. I finally found you. Why couldn't you wait for me a little longer?" He was crying bitterly, but he still didn't forget to wave the baton in his hand and blow the heads of the approaching zombies one by one. After waking up, I suddenly realized a problem. I needed weapons. Act. As soon as you think of it, I sat up from the bed with a carp-like movement, changed my clothes, and went to a security supplies store. I bought surveillance cameras, walkie-talkies, batons, and flashlights. The walkie-talkies were used to communicate with the neighbors, and the batons were used to prevent the neighbors from coming to my door to communicate with me. After all, with so many supplies of mine, I would become the target of public criticism. At that time, I needed to protect myself. I paid yuan to the boss and told him to come back in the afternoon to install the surveillance cameras. After coming out of the security supplies store, I went to the mobile phone store next door. Looking at the mobile phones in the counter, I calculated the remaining money and secretly regretted buying too much rice, which made it very tight for me to buy Xiaomi phones now. "Hello, please give me Xiaomi phones, Xiaomi tablets, and power banks." The salesperson closest to me was introducing the mobile phone performance to other customers. When she heard me, her eyes lit up. The way she looked at me seemed to say that this month's KPI was guaranteed. "Please wait a moment, I'll be right with you." I watched the customer next to me take advantage of the situation. "Give me a power bank." "Really can't he? This is already the lowest price. Just give one look, the customer next to you is waiting." "All right." It suddenly dawned on me. After seeing off that customer, the salesperson walked towards me with a beaming smile. "I'm sorry to have kept you waiting. What did you say you wanted just now?" 5 Xiaomi phones and 5 Xiaomi tablets." The salesperson's expression changed slightly. "What about those 10 power banks from before?" I smiled faintly. "With such a large purchase, there should be no problem giving me 10 power banks, right?" The salesperson forced a smile. "With your large purchase, of course there's no problem giving you 10 power banks." After returning home, I filled the memory of all 5 tablets. Popular movies, TV dramas, and various variety shows were basically downloaded. I also downloaded many single-player games on several other phones. I was already looking forward to it. In the afternoon, the technician from the security store came to help install all the surveillance cameras, and then started teaching me how to use the walkie-talkies. I adjusted all the walkie-talkies to the same channel, and tested them one by one to ensure they were working. Then, I thanked the technician profusely, and saw him off. After dinner, I sat in the yard, looking at these flowers and plants. They were lush and flourishing. So the soil must be nutrient-rich soil suitable for the growth of flowers and plants. I thought that since it was suitable for the growth of flowers and plants, it should also be suitable for other plants, right? 2 days before the apocalypse broke out last night, I called those workers I had contacted before, and arranged the time for them to come and start the construction early the next morning. Just as the sky was dawning, the first batch of workers arrived on time with building materials. They built a wall around the villa with cement and bricks. The wall was built to a height of 3 meters, as I requested before long. The second batch of workers arrived. They installed anti-theft nets on all the windows. I leisurely supervised the work on the side. This was a matter of life and death, and absolutely could not be taken lightly. Building the wall was much slower than I had imagined. To save time, I took a taxi and went straight to the seed company according to my own preferences. I bought seeds of more than 10 kinds of vegetables, and also some fertilizers on the way back. I suddenly realized a very important problem. Although I don't like eating chicken, I like eating eggs. Master, please turn around and go to Nanmen Market. The driver stepped on the gas pedal and took me to Nanmen Market after buying chickens. I also bought a lot of vegetables before my vegetable field germinates. I still need to rely on them to supplement my nutrition. The small vendor selling vegetables followed me back to the villa in his truck and was very considerate to help me put the vegetables in the refrigerator before leaving. He pursed his lips, looking at the villa under construction, and muttered in a low voice, "Rich people really know how to have fun. This is like they're going to cut themselves off from the world." Others laugh at me for being crazy, while I laugh at them for not seeing through. "Young girl, you've built this wall outside the yard. TSK. This is an encroachment on public area." I turned around and said politely, "Are you from the property management? What kind of way is that to talk, kid? Can't I manage it if I'm not from the property management? Encroaching on public area is an infringement of the rights and interests of other property owners." I rolled my eyes and shouted in my heart, "Then call the police and arrest me." But on the surface, I remained calm and took out $100 bill from my pocket. "Auntie, this wall is just built along the outer perimeter of my yard, just exceeding the thickness of 1 brick. Please just pretend you didn't see it." The aunt looked around furtively, seeing no one. She quickly stuffed the money into her trouser pocket. "It's better to build the wall higher. A higher wall is safe for you. A young girl living alone. Have to be more careful." I looked at the aunt's back and sneered. She had a beauty mark at the corner of her mouth. I made a mental note of it. The workers installing the anti-theft nets left before it got dark. The ones building the wall worked until late at night. The planned security door could only be installed tomorrow. One day before the apocalypse broke out, the autumn wind was strong in the early autumn, and the weather was dry. After one night, the wall had basically dried at 1:00 in the morning. The boss selling security doors came with the door for installation. I spent a large sum of money to buy an extremely sturdy password lock. Security door keys might be lost, but passwords would never be forgotten. After paying yuan, the balance was yuan at this time. I had already planned for this money. I was going to use it to eat Japanese food. I locked the gate of the villa and returned to my own home from the bedroom window of building where I originally lived. I could just see the entrance of the community at 1:00 in the evening. I heard the sound of footsteps going upstairs through the door. Viewer, I saw Lu Yuan dragging his tired body step by step up the heart that had been hanging, finally settled since that encounter in the pharmacy. I hadn't seen him again, nor had I seen him working in the community. After making sure he was home, I dialed the phone number of the electric welding worker. Execute as originally planned. I had observed that the security guard changed shifts at 0:00. The previous security guard would go home to sleep half an hour early, and the next security guard would sleep for half an hour longer. Before going out, 1 hour was enough time for them to weld the gate of the community shut. Bang, bang, bang. I had just lain down on the bed when I heard a rapid knocking on the door. The apocalypse broke out in the morning. I was woken up by the noisy voices downstairs. "Which son of a bitch welded the gate of the community shut?" "That's right, welding the community gate shut. How are we supposed to go to work?" "Call the police. Hurry up and call the police. I'm going to be late for work. Don't let me find out who blocked the community gate, damn it." I zoomed in on the camera, took a photo, and noted down their features. The middle-aged man who called me a son of a bitch was a bit on the chubby side. The young guy who said he would call the police was not very good looking. The bald man who called himself Louth was. I opened the window and shouted towards downstairs, "You son of a bitch. It was your dad who welded the gate shut. Have the guts to call the police and arrest me." Then I closed the window with lightning speed. Can't stand even a little bit of grievance before closing the window. Why did it seem like it was raining? I looked up at the sky. It was clear and sunny. Then I touched the top of my head. There were clearly drops of water. I lived on the top floor. There was only one resident upstairs, and that was Lu Yuan. I felt a faint sense of worry. I took the keys and went out to the entrance of the community to watch the excitement in my previous life. At this very time, I was coming back from buying groceries and saw 3 dongan chasing a little girl frantically, running in the direction of our community. I put down the groceries and wanted to go up and help before I could run a few steps. I saw the little girl fall to the ground less than meters away from Methan. The 3 dongan pounced on her like crazy and bit the little girl's body. Fiercely scared, I turned and ran, not forgetting to pick up the groceries I had just thrown on the ground. I had watched a lot of zombie movies, although the virus had just broken out, and they still looked human. I was sure they were zombies looking at the welded shut gate of the community. My mind went blank. Why hasn't the apocalypse broken out yet? If the apocalypse doesn't come, what will happen to my supplies? What about my loans? Help! A tragic scream came from inside the community. Everyone stopped complaining and looked in the direction of the sound. My heart skipped a beat. It was her. The little girl who was bitten in my previous life. She fell not far in front of us. The difference was that it wasn't just the previous 3 Jahan chasing her. But before I panicked, I never expected zombies to appear in the community. and the community gate was sealed shut by me. 4 zombies were lying on the ground, biting the little girl's body. Everyone was stunned, and didn't know how to react for a while. A figure quickly flashed out from the entrance of building. He was holding a baton in his hand, rushed to the zombies, and blew their heads one by one. His movements were so proficient that I was a bit surprised. Lu Yuan was really fucking handsome. I was so immersed in it that I forgot to run. Are these zombies? The not very good looking young guy slowly turned around, the fear in his eyes not yet dissipated. Yes. Before I could answer, Lu Yuan actually spoke up first to answer his question. Are they the zombies from zombie movies? The kind that can infect you if you're bitten? Damn it. Which dad is so far-sighted to have welded the gate of our community shut? The speaker was the chubby middle-aged man who had called me a son of a bitch before. I felt a bit guilty. If it weren't for Lu Yuan suddenly rushing out to deal with these 4 zombies, the community would probably have fallen. He's killed someone. He's a murderer. Call the police quickly. I was startled. I turned around, and the source of the sound was the aunt who had blackmailed me for 100 yuan before. The one with the beauty mark at the corner of her mouth. She was pointing at Lu Yuan in a state of shock. Obviously, she didn't understand what we meant by zombies, and what being infected meant, so she naturally couldn't understand Lu Yuan's actions just now. I sneered, and was about to leave. The smell of blood evoked some not so pleasant memories for me. She grabbed my arm. Young girl, call the police quickly. Let the police arrest this murderer. There can't be such a person in our community. It's too scary. I rolled my eyes. Then you call the police and arrest him, Justice Messenger. Everyone scattered in a panic and all fled back home soon. The community property owners group exploded. Someone sent the scene video to the group, and everyone was shocked. I sent a message in the group selling vegetables that are not defined. 1 day's labor for 1 Chinese cabbage. Many people started attacking me personally. What time is this? There are still people joking. 1 day's labor for 1 Chinese cabbage. Isn't this taking advantage of the situation? Now that none of us can go out, those with supplies should help other neighbors more. That's right, I don't have any vegetables at home. Which kind-hearted neighbor can give me some? Fortunately, I just went to the supermarket to buy a large batch yesterday. When there are enough birds, there will be all kinds of forests. Just after closing the group, someone added me on WeChat. I held my phone, extremely excited. I was too familiar with this profile picture. It was the person I had been longing for. I immediately clicked to accept. The other party quickly sent a message. I'm applying for the security guard position. I don't need money, just provide meals. Send a full body photo and resume so that I know you're qualified for this job. I really wasn't taking advantage of the situation. Lu Yuan was cm tall, and weighed no more than Genie. Was just worried that he wasn't qualified for this job. Don't ask me how I knew. My eyes are the ruler. My name is Lu Yuan, male, years old, cm tall, weighing. Genie study at Subei Normal University, majoring in martial arts and traditional national sports. Currently, my internship unit is the property management department of Happy Garden Community, and my position is security guard. Along with a photo, taken in the gym through the white t-shirt, his 8-pack abs were faintly visible. No wonder he was so straightforward when dealing with zombies. Slurp. I licked my lips and typed quickly on the screen. 3 meals a day, 2 dishes and 1 soup. After Lu Yuan took office, I invited him to move into the villa with me. After all, he was good at fighting, and was my personal bodyguard. This was very reasonable. To cultivate his safety awareness, I sent him a tablet with all the zombie movies I had downloaded. It could be regarded as pre-job training. However, Lu Yuan refused. I don't need pre-job training. I can even take down the zombie king, let alone these low-level zombies. I tilted my head and looked at him. Remembering the night before the zombie outbreak, he knocked on my door anxiously the moment he saw me, the joy in his eyes, and that sentence. Don't go out tomorrow. I vaguely felt that something was wrong. Help! Help! Heart! Rending cries came. My heart skipped a beat. This sound clearly came from inside the community. Lu Yuan, there are still zombies in the community. I looked at Lu Yuan, my voice a bit trembling. There were still zombies in the community, which meant that even if the community was closed, it was not safe. Lu Yuan's expression was solemn, and he said in a deep voice, hide at home and never go out. Then, he picked up the baton, and was about to leave. I grabbed the corner of Lu Yuan's clothes. Bodyguard, be careful. Lu Yuan tugged at the corners of his mouth, and patted my hand soothingly. Don't worry. The confidence in his eyes comforted me. Half an hour later, Lu Yuan came back covered in blood. He raised his arm, and used his sleeve to wipe the blood on his face. The blood smudged, covering his fair skin. My heart tightened. Why did this face? On the 10th day of the apocalypse, and the 2nd day after the water, electricity, and internet were cut off in the community, the air was thick with the stench of decay from outside the wall. The familiar ho sounds echoed from time to time. At first, a few zombies would wander around the community. Occasionally, most of them were people who had been bitten by zombies, climbed over the wall and entered, and then, after turning into zombies, bit those in the community who tried to escape. Soon, the number of zombies in the community grew. The original idea of distributing supplies openly in the community was thus nipped in the bud. The neighbors might also be on the verge of collapse, which was why some people tried to escape. So, taking advantage of the darkness when the zombies moved slowly, I carried a large bag of food, intending to feed the surviving neighbors. But Lu Yuan held me back. Even though they move sluggishly at night, do you know how many zombies there are in the community? Our vision is also limited at night. I won't allow you to take such a risk. I halted. He was right. Even if I had the ability to move among these zombies and deliver the food to the neighbors' doors, I couldn't deny that there was always an element of chance. I shouldn't take this risk. Suddenly, a loud bang, startled me so much that I almost vomited my heart out through the window. I saw the brilliant fireworks lighting up. The skimmy heart skipped a beat. Surely someone was trying to escape, and had set off the fireworks to lure all the zombies to the garden in the middle of the community and the entire community. The gate was the easiest place to climb over and escape, and it was also relatively far from the garden without further hesitation. As the risk had decreased, after all, I also hoped that someone would reach out to me when I was in desperate straits. I carried my luggage, and planned to intercept at the entrance of the community this time. Lu Yuan didn't stop. Mei left a sentence. Wait for me to go together, and then went to the basement. We arrived at the entrance of the community smoothly, and waited anxiously in the dark. We knew that once the fireworks stopped, the zombies might scatter again. A rush of rapid footsteps accompanied by ho sounds approached us. I nervously grasped Lu Yuan's hand, my palm sweaty. Although this kind of thing had been commonplace for me in my previous life, experiencing it again still filled me with fear. Run. Don't worry about me. No, we leave together. Dad. I want Dad. Woo-woo. I tightened my grip on the baton in my hand, assuming a fighting stance by the moonlight. I saw Lu Yuan's brows furrowed. He took a step forward, and shielded me behind him. The intense screams gradually turned into pained whimpers, and a strong smell of blood filled my nostrils. I almost vomited. Lu Yuan held my hand even more tightly and whispered, "Don't be afraid, I'm here." Somehow, I felt a sense of reassurance. The stench of decay grew stronger. I warily raised the baton in my hand. The next second, a zombie fell less than a meter to my left. Its head was smashed by Lu Yuan with the baton, and rolled far away. I was still in shock when suddenly, a hand grabbed my ankle tightly. I let out a cry and, realizing the danger, quickly covered my mouth. Nevertheless, a few zombies faintly moved in my direction. Lu Yuan stomped on the head of the zombie that was attacking me on the ground. A woman pulled a child and ran towards us, then dropped to her knees with a thud. "Please save the child." I helped the woman who was kneeling on the ground. Her palm was warm and wet. "Were you bitten?" The little girl was named Meng Ying, years old since the night I brought her back. She had been shutting herself in the room, neither eating nor drinking no matter how we called her. She ignored us. It had been 2 days in my previous life. I had seen too many children who had lost their parents without the protection of their parents. Most of them couldn't survive now. I was glad that I had the ability to protect her. If she continues like this, she might starve to death. Sitting on the sofa, I looked worriedly towards the door. "We need to get ready to leave," Lu Yuan said to me. "Seriously, leave?" I was puzzled. "We have enough food here as long as we hide here and hold out until March next year. The army will come to rescue us." Lu Yuan was slightly taken aback, and looked me up and down with an inquiring gaze. "I mean, we have a lot of food. There's no need to take risks and go out. I believe the country will definitely send someone to save us." I was very uneasy and organized my words and said it again. "Not necessarily." Lu Yuan was silent for a while, and then spoke slowly. I was confused. Why not necessarily? I remembered clearly that in my previous life, the army had arrived in Subei City to save the surviving humans. It was just that I was unlucky and didn't wait for the rescue. So, by the same token, we would definitely wait for the rescue. It was just a matter of time. Yao, I didn't find him. I have to go find him. Lu Yuan's beautiful black eyes seemed to be covered with a layer of mist, and his tone was very helpless. Lu Yuan would go out to clear the zombies in the community every day when the sun set, and return home when it was dark because at this time, the zombies' movements would become slow. Even if he was besieged by a group of zombies, he could easily escape. I knocked on Meng Ying's door more and more frequently. I didn't know how long a normal person could survive without eating or drinking, but I knew that it had been 4 days. If she didn't come out, I might have to break down the door. Lu Yuan rushed in from outside, panting probably because he had killed a lot of zombies today. His face was covered with dirt, and it was almost impossible to see his handsome features. This blurred face overlapped with the face in my memory. I exclaimed, "So it's you, the bread guy." No wonder I had thought before that his face seemed familiar. I smiled self-deprecatingly. In my previous life, I was probably so tormented by this damned apocalypse that I lost my mind. It was only 9 months since we last met, and I actually didn't recognize my own male god. Fortunately, I had felt compassion at that time and gave him the bread. I wonder if he waited for the rescue. After eating my bread, Lu Yuan went into the bathroom to wash his face, changed his clothes, and sat on the sofa. "No wonder you stockpiled goods. Have you always been confused? You stockpiled so much that it's enough to last for 2 years. Why were you wandering outside?" "So you're the same as me." I looked at him in surprise. Why did he say I was wandering outside? Why did he say I was the same as him? A thought suddenly popped into my mind. Could it be? The army didn't come. The surviving humans in Subei City weren't rescued. I was saved by several people after eating the bread you gave me that day. When I found you again, you had already been bitten by a zombie, and I could only smash your head. Lu Yuan spoke with such innocence, his tone deliberately relaxed, but the hidden bitterness in his eyes couldn't be concealed. I rolled my eyes, listened to him talk about how he sent me away, and then teased. "And then? Who sent you away later? Which kind-hearted zombie?" Lu Yuan let out a heavy sigh. "The zombie king Lu Feng." "The zombie king?" I sneered. "You're bluffing me. I managed to survive in the apocalypse for at least 9 months, and never heard of a zombie king." "He's my father." Lu Yuan's long eyelashes drooped, casting a long shadow on his face. In the light I remained silent, sitting quietly beside him, listening to him finish. Lu Yuan's father was a virus research expert in Huagui. In a virus leakage accident, he unfortunately got infected with the zombie virus. That is the first-generation zombie in Lu Yuan's words. He was the zombie king after Lu Yuan was rescued by the leader of a certain base. He learned about the zombie king and that base leader was Zhang Weiguo, a colleague who had fought side by side with his father. He knew the ins and outs of the whole thing. The entire apocalypse lasted for 3 years. They finally found the zombie Kinjin, ordered to extract the zombie king's blood, and develop an antidote. Lu Yuan didn't hesitate to kill his own father with his own hands. And he also died of serious injuries. I was reborn 6 days before the apocalypse. Realizing that I had been reborn, I rushed to the research institute where my father was, hoping to prevent this catastrophe and save the girl I had been longing for. However, he wasn't in the research institute, which was completely different from what Zhang Weiguo had said. As I listened to him, I felt a bit down. It turned out that he had a girl he liked. I then dashed back home, eager to take a look at the girl I had been yearning for. When I saw that she was almost moving the entire supermarket back home, I finally felt relieved. Even if I couldn't stop this catastrophe, at least she wouldn't starve to death. I stared at Lu Yuan in shock, remembering that 6 days before the apocalypse, when he discovered me stockpiling goods, and even asked me for a bread, that bread was of the same brand as the one I gave him in my previous life. So the girl you like? It's you, Mingyao. I've liked you for a long time. Lu Yuan said solemnly. I could hardly believe my ears. What was it like to be confessed to by someone you had a crush on? After coming to my senses, I suddenly realized a problem. Could it be that just because I showed a moment of kindness and saved him, he mistook gratitude for love? Just because of that bread? I asked even earlier. He replied. I looked at him in confusion. Since the time you pinched the instant noodles in the supermarket. Since the time you pushed over a row of drinks on the supermarket shelf. Since the time you hid the price tags in the supermarket. I felt extremely ashamed. Was this a confession? It was clearly listing my misdeeds. There was indeed such an incident a year ago. I bought expired snacks in that supermarket. The boss actually tore up the receipt, right in front of me, and spoke harshly to me out of anger. After disguising myself, I sneaked into the supermarket and caused chaos. Do you think why I came to be a security guard in your community? I shook my head honestly, to see the girl I like every day. Me? 2 days later, Lu Yuan had almost cleared all the zombies in the community. Lu Yuan found a SUV in the community, and planned to take me with him to the base from his previous life, to discuss solutions with Zhang Weiguo. Before leaving, Lu Yuan went to siphon gasoline from other cars, and I decided to forcefully take Mengying with us. Otherwise, she would surely starve to death in the room. After failing to communicate with her outside the door, I kicked the door frantically just before my leg gave out. The door opened. I was stunned to see the empty room. I had seen Mengying enter with my own eyes, but I had never seen her come out. The gate of the yard was a password lock unless she climbed over the 3-meter high wall. My heart skipped a beat. Could it be that she had already? The yard gate opened. It was Lu Yuan who had returned, and he was accompanied by a middle-aged man who bore some resemblance to him between his eyebrows and eyes. Yao Yao, this is my father, Lu Feng. Hearing Lu Yuan's words, I instinctively took a few steps back. Goodness, this was the renowned zombie king. I gave Lu Yuan a meaningful look, indicating that he should launch a surprise attack. But he just smiled at me. Yao Yao, don't be afraid. My father isn't the zombie king. I was deceived by Zhang Weiguo. I smiled awkwardly. Hello, uncle. Lu Yuan entered the room, and went straight to Mengying's room. Seeing the empty room, the panic in his eyes flashed by. Where's Mengying? I shook my head. When I just opened the door, I found that she was gone. Did you see her when you were clearing the zombies in the community? Lu Yuan's expression was solemn. A total of 7 children in the community were killed. I'm sure Mengying wasn't among them. Oh no. Lu Feng slapped his thigh. On that day, we locked the door, took a lot of food, and set off on the road. Lu Yuan and I were in one car, and Lu Feng drove another car. We set off towards the base, where Lu Yuan was in his previous life. The journey wasn't far. It would probably take about 5 hours to get there before the apocalypse, but now the situation was different. There were zombies and zombie corpses everywhere along the way, as well as those vehicles lying haphazardly in the middle of the road. 3 days later, we reached the base. Maybe it's still early, and the base isn't fully established yet. There aren't even any guards, but we still need to be extra careful. Lu Yuan held a baton, and walked towards the entrance of the base, while Lu Feng and I followed behind him. When we walked closer, we found that the gate wasn't locked. Lu Yuan led us all the way to the 3rd floor, and came to the room where Zhang Weiguo lived. The door was slightly ajar. As Lu Yuan pushed the door open, a stench of decay rushed towards you. Corpse was lying on the ground, with its head and body separated. There were no neat incisions at the neck. It looked as if it had been torn apart forcefully. He is Zhang Weiguo. Lu Yuan sighed. A huge sense of fear overwhelmed my. Mindy had seen many killed zombies, but the look of sheer terror in Zhang Weiguo's eyes told me that he was still human before he died. There's a note here. Lu Feng picked up a piece of paper from the table. I took it. It read, I'm waiting for you on the rooftop. Lu Yuan and I exchanged a look. Everything was so strange. Dad, you're the hope of all mankind. You can't afford to take any risks. Wait for us here. Lu Yuan said. Lu Feng nodded. Only he knew how to develop the antidote. He patted Lu Yuan's shoulder heavily. You must be careful. Climbing up the ladder to the rooftop terrace, we saw that long missed face. Sister Mingyao, brother Lu Yuan. Mengying turned around and smiled at us, her eyes filled with sorrow. I finally waited for you. I looked at her in surprise. Mengying, why are you here? Be careful, she's the zombie king. Lu Yuan looked at her warily, and took a step forward to shield me. After Lu Yuan said that, I noticed that there was a faint blue light in Mengying's eyes, which was particularly obvious in the sunlight. No wonder Lu Yuan didn't notice anything unusual about her that night. The zombie king. I was extremely puzzled. Was the zombie king supposed to be his father? How did it become this little girl? Brother Lu Yuan, don't worry, I won't hurt you. You saved me. Lu Yuan didn't relax his vigilance because of her words. Meng Ying slowly walked towards you as I held Lu Yuan's hand. But I didn't feel that scared anymore. Zhang Weiguo captured me and used me for experiments. He injected me with a needle. I really wanted to taste what a human being was like. The blood is really delicious. I couldn't control myself. Every time I ate a person, I could feel my whole body filled with strength. If only I had discovered my such powerful strength earlier, my parents wouldn't have died. It was only after hearing what Brother Lu Yuan said that I knew all this. Ying did something wrong. Ying didn't mean toying. Ying has to find a way to make up for it. Did you kill Zhang Weiguo? I asked. A flash of excitement quickly crossed Meng Ying's eyes. I twisted his head off. That tone as if seeking praise made my blood run cold. Meng Ying suddenly rushed forward and grabbed my neck. The speed was so fast that I couldn't react. She choked my neck and looked at me coldly. You were clearly there that night. You saw it. Why didn't you save my parents? You're so heartless. My neck was tightly squeezed by her, and I managed to utter a single syllable. I didn't dare to act rashly. Her strength was beyond my imagination. If she just tightened her fingers a little, I would be gone. I gently moved my fingers. Lu Yuan should have seen it, right? He should understand what I meant, right? Let her go. It's not her fault. Lu Yuan's eyes were red, but he didn't dare to act, for fear of provoking Meng Ying and making her do me harm. Meng Ying turned to look at Lu Yuan and asked excitedly and loudly, not her fault? She could have killed those zombies, but she just stood by and watched. How is it not her? Hot blood slowly flowed down my hand. After regaining my breath, I pushed Meng Ying away. After all, she was just a year-old girl and couldn't match someone like me who had survived in the apocalypse for so long. Having lived in the apocalypse for so long, I had developed a habit of hiding a small knife in my sleeve. Taking advantage of the moment when Meng Ying was questioning Lu Yuan, I took out the small knife hidden in my sleeve and stabbed it directly into Meng Ying's head. After taking a short rest, Lu Yuan and I carried Meng Ying's body downstairs together. The moment Zhang Feng saw us, tears streamed down his face. He said excitedly, "There's hope. There's finally hope." Zhang Feng lived up to everyone's expectations. In just half a month, he developed the antidote. As long as zombies whose brains hadn't been damaged were injected with this antidote, they would return to their original state. However, they would retain the memories of when they were zombies. So many people chose to commit suicide because they felt deeply guilty for having eaten people. I looked at the warehouse of my villa with tears in my eyes. What was I going to do with all the goods in this basement? How was I going to pay off those loans? Lu Yuan gently stroked my head with affection. Eat slowly. If you can't finish it, give it to others. This is all money I still owe you onto those loan apps. Wah. Probably because my crying was so unpleasant, Lu Yuan threw me a card. There's 1 million yuan in it. My crying stopped abruptly, and I said joyfully, is it for me? Yeah. Lu Yuan softly responded, you're so rich, yet you still worked as a security guard? I stared at the card in my hand. He suspected he was lying to me, but I had no evidence. The government rewarded 10 million yuan, and I split it evenly with my dad. Me. Then what about my share? I also contributed a lot. I cha yao qi gu gu de shuo. Lu Yuan threw me another card. My dad didn't take his share. It's all for the two of us. Woohoo. The 10 million yuan is all mine now. I was as happy as a child who had saved the world. Do you know the password? I was stunned. Yao Yao, I love you? Lu Yuan smiled. I twisted his ear. Don't bluff me. Whose password is only 5 digits? You'll have to take my surname in the future. Lu Yuan winced in pain. I let go of his ear and asked tentatively. My wife is so smart. The end.